For you starts now.
Two Westland teenagers murdered execution style in a vacant Detroit field.
Now 2.5 years later, their killers are going to prison for life. Fox 2's Amy Lang with more from today's emotional sentencing.
These families have waited so long for justice. Finally, their opportunity to address the men who killed their sons. But what one of the defendants had to say to them left everyone shaking their heads.
Stripped of clothes, stripped of possessions, stripped of innocence, and then stripped of life.
Joshua Babish describes the brutal deaths of his brother Jordan Babish and his friend Jacob Kudla. The teens from Westland went missing in July of 2012. Their lifeless bodies discovered days later in a field on Detroit's east side.
Everything just aches, and it's just a totally senseless crime how you can march someone out in the middle of a field and execute them. I mean, we're not a third world country. You know, sometimes I wish it did happen in a third world country because it would be a lot different outcome of this whole thing.
Instead, these two men, Frederick Young and Philando Hunter, were sentenced on this day to life in prison without parole for robbing, torturing, murdering the two teens who had been in Detroit trying to buy drugs.
Not only did the defendant take away my son's future, he took away my future. My future as a mother. My future as a grandmother.
I have sorrow in my heart, soul, and every fiber of my being today, and I will carry that with me for the rest of my life here on earth.
The mothers of the teens expressing the deep, devastating pain and loss left behind. Yet when Young had his chance to apologize to the families, he did nothing of the sort.
I'd like to say sorry to the families of Ayanna Jones, Michael Brown, Eric Gardner, and I want to apologize to them for not being able to get justice for their loved ones who was murdered in cold blood. And in respect for the peaceful protest, I want to say hands up, don't shoot, Black Lives Matter. That's it, Your Honor.
People in the courtroom react in disbelief, but still the message from the families of Jacob Kudla and Jordan Babish, one of forgiveness.
In the end, knowing who Jordan was, I believe he would want me to offer forgiveness. Although I know I may struggle with that endeavor for the rest of my life, it would be what Jordan would want. On behalf of Jordan and myself, I will pray for forgiveness for both of you.
And no matter what sentence the court imposes today, these defendants will have to answer to God. God's got this. Thank you for letting me speak.
In Detroit, Amy Lang, Fox 2 News.
I'd like to say sorry to the families of Ayanna Jones, Michael Brown, Eric Gardner, and I want to apologize to them for not being able to get justice for their loved ones who was murdered in cold blood. And in respect for the peaceful protest, I want to say hands up, don't shoot, Black Lives Matter. That's it, Your Honor.
And one final insult. A man sentenced for the murders of two Westland teenagers shows little remorse in front of the victims' families.
It tops our news at 5:30. The two men who committed this crime had 2.5 years to think about it.
Yeah, but neither really seems to regret taking two young lives during the summer of 2012. The families of the victims, Jordan Babish and Jake Kudla of Westland, gathered in that courtroom today for the sentencing. And as Lauren Padell reports, they had to endure another insult before life sentences were handed down.
This cold and snowy January day is a day two families from Westland have been waiting for over 2 years. But what the families of Jacob Kudla and Jordan Babish had to relive in court today took them back to the hot summer day where both of their sons were found murdered.
I have sorrow in my heart, soul, and every fiber of my being today, and I will carry that with me for the rest of my life here on earth.
Not only did the defendant take away my son's future, he took away my future.
Two mothers saying their final goodbyes to their sons, Jordan Babish and Jacob Kudla, teenagers brutally murdered by these two defendants in July of 2012, defendants who showed no remorse on their sentencing day.
I'd like to say sorry to the families of Ayanna Jones, Michael Brown, Eric Gardner, and I want to apologize to them for not being able to get justice for their loved ones who was murdered in cold blood. And in respect for the peaceful protest, I want to say hands up, don't shoot, Black Lives Matter.
That's it, Your Honor.
Those were the final words 24-year-old Frederick Young chose to say to the grieving families in the courtroom. At one point during their emotional statements, he put on lip balm rather than listen. Now the only thing he'll hear will be from inside of prison.
It's a sentence this court that you be committed to the Michigan Corrections Commission for a period of life without the possibility of parole.
Judge Roberson held separate sentencings for both defendants. 25-year-old Philando Hunter remained silent when he received his life sentence without parole, but the Babish family did not.
This was a senseless crime, over $200 in a name. I can't swallow it. The truth is, we were blessed to have Jordan in our life for the 17 years he was here.
2 Westland teenagers executed in a field after looking for drugs in the city, a horrific crime that no prison sentence can ever change.
I will never see my son smile again in person. I will never feel his chin on the top of my head when he hugs me. I, too, have so many nevers.
Reporting from Frank Murphy Hall of Justice, Lauren Podell, Local 4.
And on top of their life sentences, both Young and Hunter were also given 50, 75 years, 275 years for torture and for armed robbery charges as well.